There's an interesting article in BuzzFeed about why woke outrage isn't trying to cancel It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Interestingly, they kind of praise the show while highlighting extremely offensive things the show has done. I don't think they're necessarily directly calling for the shutdown of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia for being offensive, but they're missing the point about woke outrage and cancel culture. And in effect, I do kind of think they're trying to move into legacy territory that's been very difficult for them to cancel in the first place, notably Family Guy and South Park. In this story from September 12th, it says, as South Park gets renewed through 2022, Matt Stone and Trey Parker also have new movie ideas. In it, they say, quote, "It's new," Stone says of cancel culture. The term used to refer to boycott started usually via social media when a person or group is offended by a star or brand. I don't want to say it's the same as it's always been. The kids are effing different than us. There's a generational thing going on. Currently, Dave Chappelle is in the crosshairs for his latest Netflix stand-up special, Sticks and Stones. I know some people have been canceled for genuinely personal behavior, but Dave is not getting canceled anytime soon. Stone says, joking, that South Park and Chappelle are, quote, grandfathered out of the culture. So let me be very clear. I kind of have an inkling that the story about It's Always Sunny is them now trying to move into legacy territory. They can't outright come out and say Family Guy, South Park, and It's Always Sunny should be canceled. They can make pieces like this. So again, I'm going to be very careful here. The story does praise the show and say, I hope they never cancel it. But I believe, in my personal opinion, this may be a push to, raise awareness around these issues and test the waters. I know I don't want to say they're doing it intentionally, but this is what we're going to see first. So let me just show you the story and you can decide for yourself. They write, why hasn't cancel culture come for It's Always Sunny? Even after 14 seasons, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia continues to be funny, innovative, and deeply offensive. How does a show so politically incorrect survive for so long? Ask South Park, ask Dave Chappelle. She writes, I don't know how we're going to explain a show like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia to younger generations. The concept of the show is simple enough. A brother and sister, their dad, and two friends hang out at a bar they own all day, getting into hijinks. The episode descriptions, however, are impossible to describe without cringing. You see? Here's where they go. Quote, a guy dies in Patty's pub. Dennis and Mac use the guy's death as an excuse to get close to the guy's attractive granddaughter. Meanwhile, Charlie discovers that Dennis and Dee's grandfather was a Nazi. IMDb synopsis of season 1. The gang finds a dead guy. Another episode synopsis from season 3 reads, Sweet Dee's dating a... I can't say this word on YouTube. Isn't that insane? Okay, I'm just going to say it because it's already in the thing. You can already read it. It says, Sweet Dee's dating a retarded person. While Dennis and Dee try to figure out if the rapper Dee is dating has a mental handicap or not, Charlie, Mac, and Frank tried to start their own band without knowledge of how to play musical instruments. Please trust me when I say this episode is a classic, not because of the Dee plotline, but because Dennis and Charlie sing a song about the Dayman, fighter of the Nightman, while huffing silver aerosol paint out of a sock. It's interesting. I genuinely think they want to cancel shows like this, but something happened. The way to explain it before is grandfathering in, it's real. I think the reason, though, is that what front can you win on? For the woke outrage cancel culture stuff, they can target someone that people know very little about. So Jordan Peterson emerges. People know very little about him. So they smear him. They try to destroy him. You get someone like Dave Rubin. Dave starts gaining a massive following, and then all of a sudden, ridiculous smears emerge. The reason is Dave doesn't have legacy articles to protect him. So I've actually talked about this with people about why it's been very difficult for them to try to smear me. It's because I have legacy articles predating the culture war that essentially protect me. Going back to 2011 with Occupy Wall Street and Time Magazine, you can't erase that. I emerged at a time before the culture war broke into the mainstream. So you can't, they've tried in a sense to go back and try and accuse me of certain things. But look, I worked for Disney. I worked for Vice. It makes it very difficult. And then I find that oftentimes in these smear pieces, they outright ignore me altogether. There have been several smears that have come out, like research studies. And I'm always at the bottom, a footnote, or they passively mention me and don't really focus on it. I'm close to the point where I think I got a public attention soon enough that I'm close to being susceptible to whatever this war is, but just a little bit outside of it. So it's very difficult. You know, back in January of 2012, I was condemning black bloc violence, and it was acceptable. And MSNBC had me on the air, and a bunch of people at Occupy Wall Street offered me security for this. That's a really hard thing to highlight if you're trying to win an ideological battle. The thing about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and South Park and Dave Chappelle is that people know what they are. The average person is going to be like, oh, yeah, It's Always Sunny. It's funny, right? They're jokes. They're making fun of these ideas. They're making fun of these people. But if a new show emerged, or something like another good example is Count Dankula. Count Dankula's joke with the pug is nowhere near as offensive and shocking as any one of these episodes. But that's grounds to destroy his life. They're trying to preempt any opportunity for things like It's Always Sunny to exist. This is why I lean towards articles like this, whether it's their intention or not, to actually cause problems, to cancel It's Always Sunny, play into it. So I don't want to make it seem like this writer is actually trying to get them canceled. I will say, it's a weird thing to write about. The story about South Park wasn't actually about cancel culture. It was about them getting renewed, and they mention it because it's a thing. This story is literally pushing It's Always Sunny into the foray. If you look at the title, why hasn't cancel culture come from It's Always Sunny? Based on the title alone, it's almost goading someone to consider it. In the story, they talk about how they're racist, sexist, abusive, little s, who know, by any other metric, who should, by any other metric, make for an absolutely miserable television watching experience. I mean, they go on to say that Mac does blackface in 2013. Okay. Sarah Silverman lost a job because she did blackface in what, like 2007 or 2008? They actually did this in 2013. So if Sarah Silverman's not grandfathered in, if they're targeting her, I have to feel like this story is putting legacy media in the crosshairs, legacy shows. I mean, recently, Family Guy announced that they weren't going to be doing gay jokes anymore. There's been a weird, like The Simpsons has been trash for a long time. The Simpsons had an episode where Abe Simpson was bi-curious and went and kissed a man. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. There was apparently some episode, I don't know if this is true because I only read a synopsis because it was like an outrage culture thing. It was like an anti-feminist site saying that Bart is mad that they're doing a female version of Itchy and Scratchy, and then he goes and hangs out with like tough girls or something. It's very obvious the ideological shift is trying to push into legacy media. Shows like It's Always Sunny, South Park, and Dave Chappelle make it very, very difficult because it reinforces comedy. Here's the thing about It's Always Sunny that they get in this article, which I respect them for highlighting. They say that, I don't know exactly where it is, but they talk about how in an interview, you are learning, it's Rob McElhenney, one of the creators, you're laughing at them for being bad people. They're racist, they're bigots, they're drug addicts, the grandchildren of a Nazi, and you're laughing at them. That's the point of a joke. That's what it's supposed to be. They go on to, but in this, they highlight a ton of things where it's like almost giving you fodder. They say Dennis is clearly a... That word's blocked out because I can't say it, but he forces himself on women. And one episode is in particular from season 5, The Dennis System, which is absolutely hilarious, by the way, gives us a clear look at how truly deranged he is when it comes to dating. That's the one where I think that's, okay. In another episode from season 6, Dennis tells the gang that he likes to bring women to a boat on a date because of the, quote, the implication that things might go wrong for her if she refuses to sleep with me. I don't know if that's the exact quote, but he basically says something about taking a woman out on a date on a boat because of the implication. And they're like, what implication? And he's like, you know. And you infer, he's saying, if the woman fights and refuses anyway, he can throw her off the boat. The dude is sick and twisted. The whole show is insane. And it's funny for it. But boy, is it offensive. I mean, for what, 10 seasons or so, one of the jokes was that that Mac was gay. And this is another thing they bring up. There's a funny, here we go. They write, In season 6, Mac starts preaching against homosexuality when the trans woman he dated, Carmen, gets gender-affirming surgery and marries a cis man. Mac, furious that Carmen isn't single for him to bang, argues that her husband is actually gay and harasses them at the gym with scripture to prove that they're committing indecent acts, or as Mac says, sex in the butt. The gang treats Carmen with derision, as most people are treated on the show, misgendering her. But the writers are at least trying to work through the idea that it's Mac who is the actual a-hole. The audience is supposed to laugh at him for his own small-mindedness and insecurity over his own sexuality. It's a really, really weird piece, I have to admit. Because in a sense, they're actually admitting they get the point of jokes. They get the point of humor. The goal of the show is so that you can laugh at Mac, who is clearly the bad guy, and the trans woman who marries a guy are minding their own business. It's clear that Charlie has an obsession with this waitress, and he won't leave her alone. And that's what's really strange to me. The reason I want to highlight this. You know, I want to make sure I keep it tepid and I walk it back. They're absolutely not calling for the cancellation of the show. They say in the article, I hope it stays on forever. But I don't trust the motives of websites like BuzzFeed, especially when the title is Why Hasn't Cancel Culture Come From It's Always Sunny? Especially when they highlight over and over again that they do blackface, that they're racist, that they mock and belittle gay and trans people. I don't trust them. I don't trust the motivations. You can write a story and say, how come nobody's trying to get this racist show shut down? I hope they don't, but hey, check this out. You know what I mean? Of course, they'll come back and counter on me and saying I'm reading too far into it. It's conspiratorial. No. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, like, why do this? Why write a huge story about a popular show that's been on the air for 14 seasons, which has a ton of, all of these asterisks you see. This is the point. Every time you see an asterisk, it's them mentioning something that I can't talk about. It's a story that Mac is gay and there's no joke. Like they're ragging on the show, okay? That's what I read when I saw this story. It's them ragging on the show, they're targeting the show, I have to say. It seems like they want it to be canceled. So let's read the conclusion. They say, one of the most accurate depictions of depravity that It's Always Sunny has captured is how terrible people are often more preoccupied with being perceived as terrible rather than working on themselves. Mac is afraid of being physically weak, Dennis of being seen as a predator, Charlie of being seen as a harasser, Dee of not being attractive to men. We get it. They say season 14 kicks off with half of them trying to ensnare someone in a meet cute. Charlie mishears this as meat cube, and the other half trying to get hot liberal foreigners to move in and have sex with them. But this is why It's Always Sunny has lasted longer than sitcoms designed to show people growing and thriving. It was never about improvement or correction. It was only ever about pointing out the detritus of the human spirit, laughing at it, and then spitting at it while singing, "Go F yourself." So, at the very least, it could be them just doing it's them highlighting. Let me say this, to be fair. This very well may be BuzzFeed's best attempt at promoting the show. If BuzzFeed came out and wrote an article saying this show's great, you should watch it, people would say, how dare you? And they would target it for, woke outrage. However, I don't trust BuzzFeed's motivations. I don't think BuzzFeed wants to save It's Always Sunny. I think for the longest time, they've wanted to go after legacy shows. They've tried targeting Dave Chappelle, okay? It doesn't work. South Park is grandfathered in, as they say, and so is It's Always Sunny. I have no idea how things will play out, but as much as I may be jumping the gun in the story and I don't like to read too much into things without facts, let me just say I don't know what the intent or the goal is. I'm not going to assume what this writer wants to do with the show necessarily, but I definitely think they're crop dusting. The plane's getting really close to the ground. I think this could potentially kick things off. It's sort of, should we cancel this show? Should they be allowed to make these jokes? And I want to stress, keeping in mind, the changes made to The Simpsons and the changes made to Family Guy. Keep that in mind when you see stories like this. I got to be honest, I haven't watched It's Always Sunny in a really long time, so whatever. I might start watching it now, though, because it sounds really funny, and I don't know, check it out. The point is, it's humor. It's a joke. They're bad people. That's the show. And they say this. That's what the article says. So, all right, we'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 4 p.m., and I will see you all there.